Assalamu alaikum again, grade 11. How are you? Hope you are all doing great and you're doing your best in your exams, inshallah. So today we're going to talk about the future and how we can express or talk about the future in English. As usual, please get your notebook, get your book, and we're going to start. When we talk about the future, what are usually the ideas that we want to express? So what do we talk about in the future? We talk about predictions, that is, trying to guess what will happen in the future. We talk about offers and promises and suggestions. We offer things for the future, we promise things, and we suggest things. Also, we talk about decisions, plans, and arrangements. Since we do not have a specific form to use for the future, because when we studied the verb forms, we studied that we have a base form, we have a simple present form, a simple past form, and of course we have the past participle and the present participle used with different helping verbs to make the tenses. But we do not have a special form for the future, so we have to find other ways to express these future ideas. We need to have tools that help us to express the future. So let's go and see how this is done. Before I start talking about the future, I want you to meet two friends of mine. There's this guy wearing a red t-shirt and this guy who's wearing a blue suit. Although they are both my friends, they are really very different from each other. This guy with the red t-shirt is very, very friendly and generous. He's easygoing, but he's a bit chaotic. He never plans things. While the guy with the blue suit is distant and serious. He's not very friendly, but he is well prepared and always has a plan. These two people are called will and be going to. Remember them, remember their faces, remember their characters, because we're going to need them when we talk about the future. So we mainly use will and be going to talk about the future, but they are used in different ways and for different purposes. Let's start with the first use. Predictions. So how do we use will and be going to express future predictions? While we have to think about their characters because we're going to use their personalities to guide us. This table explains how we make predictions. We can make predictions based on personal opinion. Usually, we use expressions such as I think, I believe, probably, perhaps, undoubtedly, I'm sure. When we talk about predictions based on personal opinion, we use will, and of course, will is a model and it's always followed by the base form. So I think it will rain today. I think it will rain today. Will rain expresses a future prediction, but this future prediction is based on my opinion, and I know that from the word think. On the other hand, let's look at the blue side. There are some predictions that are based on facts or evidence. We usually have some mention of evidence or an observable clue. Observable is something that you can see. What do we use for these predictions? We use be going to. So I use am or is or are plus going to plus also the base form of the verb. Let's look at the example. It's going to rain today. They said so on the news. Here, when I make predictions about today's weather, I'm not just basing that on my opinion. because I think it's going to rain. No, I know it is going to rain based on what I heard on the news. So there is evidence or clue. Note that in some sentences, we have an opinion and a clue, or an opinion and a piece of evidence. So when a personal opinion and an observable fact are both present in the sentence, which one wins, the red or the blue? Actually, it's the blue. We use be going to plus the base. Am is or going to plus base. I hope that this is clear. Let's move on now to the second use in the future, when I want to make an offer or a promise or make a suggestion. Only the personality of will works for this use. So if I want to make an offer, I'm generous, I'm helpful, I'm friendly, so I have to use will. If I want to make a promise, I also have to use will. When I make suggestions, it depends. And we'll see how we can make suggestions through questions now. So look at the table. It says offers, promises, and suggestions. If we talk about statements, if we can make an offer or a promise by using will plus base. The example is, I will never leave you. This is a promise, and we use will for promises. If I make offers and suggestions in a question form, usually I use shall plus base. So I can say, shall I get you a cup of tea? This is an offer. So now we move to the third use. What was it? Yes, it was decisions, plans, and arrangements. Let's see what we can do here. When we talk about decisions, plans, and arrangements, we are actually talking about the steps of a process or one process. What do I mean? Well, the first step, you get an idea. Suddenly, you get an idea. Then you take that idea and you start thinking about it and planning for it. The third step would be making arrangements based on your plan and thinking. So it would look like something as the graph shows. I get the idea, then I start planning, and then I move into action. Usually, when we're just talking about the first step, when you just first, at the very beginning, you get the idea, you usually use will. Then when you're starting the second phase of planning and thinking, then we use be going to. If I move on from that and start making arrangements, then I have to use the present continuous. Remember when we talked about the present tenses? We said one use for the present continuous is to talk about future personal arrangements. Let's talk about this in more detail. So, for each of these three steps, we use three different forms. If we want to express the first step, we say, or we use will. This is to discuss or to express a spontaneous decision. Spontaneous means without thinking. Remember will, remember the person that I just introduced you to? Will doesn't plan. Will is always relaxed. He just goes with the flow. So, will usually makes spontaneous decisions. For example, if you're lying on the bed and you're thinking, and you hear your mother working in the kitchen, you might say, oh, I got an idea. I will go help mom in the kitchen. You use I will go to help mom in the kitchen, will go, because you didn't think about it before. You just thought about it just now. So this is a decision that you made on the spot. It's spontaneous. However, if we move further to the second step and we start thinking and planning, then we move on to using be going to. That's thinking and planning part. So let's take an example. If you've been thinking about it for 2-3 days, and you really feel guilty for lying down all day, then you might say, I have thought about it for a long time, and I'm going to start helping my mom every day. I am going to start, am going to start, shows that this decision was not made on the spot. It was not spontaneous. It is actually a decision that you made based on some thinking and planning. If we move on even further and start making arrangements based on all the thinking and planning, then we move to the third step and we use the present continuous. The present continuous is usually used for personal arrangements. So I can say, my mom and I are making cake tomorrow to surprise Dad. We have it all planned. So the present continuous and the be going to are very, very similar. They both went through a thinking and planning phase. But the present continuous moved on a bit further, because when I say I'm going to help my mother, it means I've thought about it and planned it, but I didn't arrange it. But if I call my mother up and I call her on the phone, if she's in another house or in another room, and I tell her, okay, mom, I want to help you, so let's plan a daily schedule of chores that I can help you with. Then I move from the thinking and planning to the arrangement part. Here is a summary of these ideas. When I make a spontaneous decision, that is a decision made on the spot, I use will plus base. If I want to express a future plan, which is a decision made after thinking and planning, then I use am or is or are going to plus base. If I'm talking about a future arrangement, that is after thinking and planning, I actually called the people up and made arrangements for the action to happen. Then I use the present continuous, which is am, is, are plus the ing form of the verb. Let's take an example. The example for Will says, there is somebody at the door. I'll get it. Notice that before somebody knocked at the door, you did not plan to open the door. You decided to open the door on the spot. You didn't plan it, you didn't think about it. So here, this is a decision that's made on the spot. The example for going to says, he's going to study engineering at UJ. This has been his dream since he was a child. So if this has been his dream, he must have thought about it and planned it for such a very long time. Third example, the present continuous. We are meeting our friends at the club later this evening. Notice that usually when you talk about future personal arrangements, we usually mention the people that we've arranged the meeting with. Usually also we may mention the place and the time where the action or the plan is going to happen. So here we are meeting, our meeting is the present continuous used to talk about a future arrangement. Notice that I mentioned my friends and I mentioned the place at the club and I also mentioned the time later this evening. This is a note that's very, very important. Pay attention to it. Both going to and the present continuous are used for future plans and can be used interchangeably most of the time, but there is a difference. So in actual use in the English language, you don't really make the difference. You can use going to or the present continuous. But for our purposes, because we're studying to answer questions on tests, we have to make the difference. So while going to is mostly used for intentions or plans that are necessarily arranged, the present continuous is used for plans that have in fact been arranged. So going to is for plans that are not arranged, and present continuous is for plans that have been arranged. So we have a time and a place, and we set up the meeting with people involved in the plan, and they have been notified. I called them up, I arranged everything. Please pay attention that in actual use, we do use will and going to and the present continuous without thinking whether this is a spontaneous or a planned decision. But for the exam, please pay attention, because in the question you will see that the question says use the most appropriate future form. So the most appropriate must be based on what is given in the sentence. There's one more use related to plans and arrangements, and I can't finish the future without talking about it. We use the simple present tense to talk about. Remember what? When we talked about the simple present, we said this is one use for the simple present, and it is to talk about timetabled future public events. Timetabled means it's scheduled, it has a set date or time. Public means it's not personal, it's not you making arrangements with a friend or a doctor. No, these are public events, so they're open for the public. Usually, the timetable or the schedule is announced. It's announced on TV, in the newspaper, on a board, in the street, wherever. So these are public events that are announced to the public. So what are some kind of public events? For example, the scheduled takeoff or landing of, oh, I'm sorry, this is plans, should be planes, add an E after N, the N. So the scheduled takeoff or landing of planes. Bus or underground schedules. Buses, you know buses. Underground is like the train that is underground. Trains can also be part of these public events. We can talk about shows, movies, conferences, even gym classes. Anything that is set for a specific time or date and is for the public and is announced and timetabled, then I can use the simple present to express this. All of these are public scheduled events. Let's take some examples. The plane leaves at 8 p.m. The show starts at 11:30 a.m. The circus opens on Tuesdays and Thursdays. All of these, again, are timetable future public events. Don't mistake this with the present continuous. The present continuous is planned, it has a time, but it is not public, it is personal. Okay, so now we have a quiz. So I want you to stop the video and take the time to write down these 8 sentences and fill in the blanks with the most appropriate future form. Notice, most appropriate. I know that some questions can be answered in more than one way, but I want the most appropriate. Let me give you some help. Look at each sentence, study the information in the sentence, and try to find a clue, a hint that would help you to use one of the future forms to talk about the future. Remember, will is the friendly, generous person who likes to make promises and offers, who makes predictions based on opinion. Going to is the serious, well-prepared person who likes to think and plan and likes to make predictions based on evidence. Remember that when we're talking about public events, we use the simple present, and when we're talking about personal arrangements with people at a certain time and a certain place, we use the present continuous. would like you to stop the video now, please, and take 10 minutes to do this exercise, and then you can come back to me and we'll answer it together. Okay, so you're back, and here are the answers. I hope you found it easy and straightforward, because you're going to get some questions like this on the test. So please pay attention. Again, we need the most appropriate future form. Number 1, we are going to have dinner at a nice restaurant on Saturday. Notice, I mentioned restaurant on Saturday, but I said, but we haven't booked a table yet. We haven't booked a table means we did not make arrangements. We did not make reservations. So all of these are plans, they are intentions, they are things that I thought about and I want to do, but I didn't arrange them. That's why, because it's a plan and a decision that I thought of, I'm going to use going to. If the sentence did not have this part, if I just said, we have dinner at a nice restaurant on Saturday, then the answer would be, we are having dinner at a nice restaurant on Saturday. Pay attention to make this very slight differentiation between the present continuous and going to. Number 2, my ski instructor believes it will snow in the mountains tomorrow. My ski instructor did not base his prediction on any kind of evidence. He just believes it will snow. And so, because this is a prediction based on opinion, I have to use will. Notice in this sentence, if the sentence had any kind of observable fact, something that I could see or feel, or some kind of evidence, then I would change this from it will snow to it is going to snow. For example, I can say, my ski instructor believes it is going to snow in the mountains because there is a very strong and cold wind this evening. Number 3, on Sunday at 8 o'clock, I'm meeting my friend. I am meeting my friend. Am meeting is the present continuous, and I use the present continuous here because I have an arrangement. I know when I'm meeting my friend, it's on Sunday at 8 o'clock. So most probably I called up the friend and I made arrangements. This is not just a plan, this is an arrangement. Number 4, wait, I will drive you to the station. The word wait indicates that this was a decision made on the spot. This is not something that I thought of because I'm telling the people who are leaving to wait. I just decided to drive them to the station. So a decision made on the spot uses will plus base. Look at the clouds. I believe it is going to rain. Maybe when you saw the word believe, you thought that this is an opinion. Maybe it is an opinion, but in the same sentence, I have evidence, the clouds. So when I say, look at the clouds, probably big black clouds in the sky, then this is a clue that it is going to rain. So this is a prediction based on evidence. Number 6, shall I make you breakfast now? This is an offer. And I told you, when we make offers in the form of a question, we usually use shall. Number 7, I'm sure he will come soon. No matter how sure I am, this is still an opinion. So when you say, I am sure, I believe, I am certain, without having evidence, you still have to use will plus base. Finally, I am seeing Layla tomorrow morning. This is a an arrangement. This is something that I thought about and I planned and I arranged. How do I know that I arranged it? Because I mentioned the person and the time. So probably I called Layla up and I told her, okay, Layla, are you free tomorrow? We need to get together. And I made arrangements. So for the arrangement, I use the present continuous. I hope that you got most of these right. If you haven't, it's fine, it's okay. With practice, you get better. I hope that these underlined parts in bold help you pay attention to the things that you have to look for in a sentence. I hope you enjoyed today's lesson. There is not much time left, ladies and gentlemen, so study hard, please. And if you have any questions, don't hesitate to ask. See you soon, inshallah. Stay safe and take care.